Happy art thou, O Israel, part 3 is the title of our message, and we have one thought, blessing and prayer. These are the words of blessing from Moses, last words from him. Of course, he has spoken at great length with about 5 sermons, and now he has given a song to conclude, and finally the blessing. We have looked at the Lord's blessing through Moses to the tribe of Reuben in verse 6, to Judah in verse 7, to Levi in verse 8 to 11. And today we shall look at his blessing upon Benjamin in verse 12 and Joseph in verse 13 to 17. Verse 12 says, "And of Benjamin he said, the beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him, and the Lord shall cover him all the day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders." The blessing of Benjamin. Benjamin is put next to Levi because the temple where the priest's work lay was just upon the edge of the lot of this tribe. It is put before Joseph because of the dignity of Jerusalem, part of which was in this tribe above Samaria, which is in the tribe of Ephraim, because Benjamin adhered to the house of David and to the temple of the Lord, even when the rest of the tribes deserted, both with Jeroboam. So we know that when there was a defection that took place in Israel, only Benjamin stood with Judah, and all the other 10 tribes defected through Jeroboam. And for the tribe of Benjamin, Jerusalem was actually a part of the lot that was allocated to them. Here, the name Benjamin is called beloved of the Lord, and the father of this tribe was Jacob's beloved son, the son of his right hand. So he was the second son that was born to Rachel and Jacob. The first was Joseph, and Benjamin was the younger brother. Those are blessed indeed that are blessed of the Lord. And so we are told, the beloved of the Lord. This was the description of Benjamin. Saul, the first king, and Paul, the apostle, were both from the tribe of Benjamin. And it is here assured of divine protection. We are told in this blessing from Moses that Benjamin shall dwell in safety, or shall dwell safely. When we have the Lord keeping us, indeed we will dwell in safety. Psalm 91 and verse 1. "He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty." It is here intimated, Matthew Henry well puts it, that the temple in which God would dwell should be built in the borders of this tribe. Jerusalem, the holy city, was in the lot of this tribe. Joshua 18 verse 28. You remember when they allotted to the various tribes the conquered land of Canaan, and Zillah, Aleph, and Jebusi, which is Jerusalem, Gibeah, and Kajal, 14 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the children of Benjamin according to their families. God is therefore said to dwell between his shoulders, because the temple stood on that mount as the head of a man upon his shoulders. So this was the description here The beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him, and the Lord shall cover him all the day long. He shall dwell between his shoulders. The Lord with his people is the sufficiency of his people. We don't need anything else if we have the Lord with us, because he is, in him all things consist. And if we would but understand this truth, our life would be spared of many a misery. So here we are told, by this means Benjamin was covered all the day long under the protection of the sanctuary. Psalm 125 and verse 2, as the mountains are round about Jerusalem, so the Lord is round about his people from henceforth even forevermore. And it is often spoken of as a place of refuge. When we come to the Lord, when we come in worship to the Lord, he is there with us, and he protects us, and he guards not only our hearts, our minds, but he protects us physically. One thing have I desired, the psalmist David says, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. So it is a happy thing to be in the neighborhood of the temple, isn't it? The situation of Benjamin, it is likely, was the only thing that kept that tribe in adherence with Judah to the divine institutions when the other 10 tribes apostatized. Those have corrupt and wicked hearts indeed, who, the nearer they are to the church, are so much the further from God. What's a sad thing, isn't it? When we have God with us, then we ought to be even closer to him, isn't it? But proximity does not always guarantee that the heart is following and close to the Lord, isn't it? We can be here, but our minds can be somewhere else, or we can be somewhere else and yet our mind is here. We have those of our brethren who are following us through the webcast in our Bible study weekly. Though physically they are unable to come and join us, and yet, when it's time, they would be there tuning in, waiting, preparing, although they may not be physically with us, but we are thankful to God that we are connected with one another through the means that God has given to us, so that there is still that very close connection, that very close relationship that we have with the Lord. So we see the blessing to Benjamin, that's the fourth after Reuben, Judah, and Levi. Then comes Joseph in verse 13 to 17. And of Joseph he said, blessed of the Lord be his land, for the precious things of heaven, for the dew and for the deep that couches beneath, and for the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, and for the precious things put forth by the moon, and for the chief things of the ancient mountains, and for the precious things of the lasting hills, and for the precious things of the earth, and fullness thereof, and for the goodwill of him that dwelt in the bush. Let the blessing come upon the head of Joseph and upon the top of the head of him that was separated from his brethren. Here it speaks about his going to Egypt ahead of his brethren. Verse 17, his glory is like the firstlings of his flock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth, and they are the 10,000 of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh. Here is given the blessings of Joseph. We are told, or we understand from the blessing that was given by Jacob, that Joseph would be allotted would be given 2 lots. Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. So in the promised land, you do not see the name of Joseph as a lot there, but you see the lots of his children, Ephraim and Manasseh, making up 2 lots. In Jacob's blessing, that of Joseph is the largest. So it is here, and thence Moses here borrows the title he gives to Joseph, that he was separated from his brethren, as it might be read, a Nazareth among them, both in regard to his piety, wherein it appears, and by many instances he excelled them all, and of his dignity in Egypt, which he was both their ruler and benefactor. How God brought him from prison to the palace, how the Lord enabled him to know the famine that was to come and the time of plenty that was before it, so that Pharaoh could prepare for that famine. And so 7 years of plenty, there was a great stocking up, and then came the famine, where Israel, the father of Joseph, faced sore travail in Canaan and had to come down to Egypt. Lo and behold, he saw that there in Egypt, God had sent beforehand Joseph to prepare a place for his brethren in the time of the famine. And so you see how the Lord works in such a mysterious, in such a marvelous way, by his providence, to work out all things well for his people. And so now the blessings here prayed for and prophesied of for this tribe of great plenty and great power. Well, when we were looking at it in the book of Joshua, you realize that they were also the tribe that was very complacent. And the trouble began there in Ephraim and Manasseh, right, as a result of the blessings that were allocated to them. His brethren separated him from them by making him a slave, but God distinguished him by making him a prince. Well said. And so verse 13 to 16 describe the blessing of the Lord, that they would be blessed with a great plenty. Blessed of the Lord be his land. Those were very fruitful countries that fell into the lot of Ephraim and Manasseh. So when the lots were being allocated by Joshua, those were the lots that were given. Those were the best lands that were given to them, that they may be watered with the blessing of God. Well, as we say this, that with the Lord is the best place, and with the Lord we can be rest assured that we would be properly taken care of. And here Moses would tell us what are those things that would contribute to the wealth and abundance of those 2 tribes. As we look up to the Creator for benefits and for all the good things that He would give us as inferior creatures, we see, and the Lord described His blessings in a very practical way in terms of the rain and the dews, the precious things of heaven, right? The rain and the dew come so that the crop needs to be watered, properly watered. In a garden, you see the gardener early in the morning taking his hose to spray so that the plot would be wet and ready for the rising sun. You realize that in the wild, the Lord will be the gardener. Right? He would send the rain to water, and it's very interesting. You see how if you let a plot of land grow on its own, right? It thrives. It just thrives on its own. The Lord takes care of it, isn't it? If man doesn't disturb it, we don't want to reclaim it. We don't want to cut down the trees. We don't want to do anything to use it. We just let it, let the ecosystem functions by itself. Well, you see a lushness as times goes by. Here, the Lord is speaking of the blessings of not just the precious things from heaven, but plentiful springs to make the earth fruitful, the deep that couches beneath, both the rivers of God that He particularly speaks of and the fountains of waters. And so the fountains of waters, the snow-capped mountains that would bring the dew or bring the water flowing all the way down and watering the land wherever it meanders and flows through. Well, this was the blessing that the Lord speaks of for the tribe of Joseph, with precious fruits, the best of its kind, with the sun, the cooling moisture of the moon. Let the yearly fruits come in its season. And so we speak here, and we are told in verse 15, the chief things of the ancient mountains and the precious things of the lasting hills. We are told here, the chief things of the ancient mountains. If the mountains be fruitful and the fruits on them will be first and best ripened, they are called ancient mountains. Not because in time to other mountains, but because, like the firstborn, they are superior in worth and excellency and lasting hills. Not only because of other mountains, they were immovable, but because of the fruitfulness of them, they should continue. And so here we are told of the ancient mountains, and verse 16, further blessing, for the precious things of the earth and the fullness thereof, and for the goodwill of him that dwelt in the bush, let the blessing come upon the head of Joseph. So here we are told of the blessing, as Job says in Job 28 verse 5, as for the earth, out of it cometh bread, and under it is turned up as it were fire. Here we are told with the basic elements that the Lord endows for us, we are able to produce a proper food for our physical needs. Right? Out of the earth comes bread, and under it, as it were, fire. It crowns all with the goodwill and favorable acceptance of him that dwelt in the bush. That is God himself. Right? God met Moses. God first meet Moses in the burning bush. Right? It was a very special encounter for him. There are certain encounters that we have in life with God that are very special. Those are very life-changing moments where God specifically speaks to us so that He would reveal to us His will for us, and those are momentous, life-changing moments. Exodus 3 verse 2, and the angel of the Lord appeared unto Moses in a flame out of the fire. So Moses was also recapping his own life, how the Lord met with him, and how the Lord instructed him to, after 40 years in the backside of the desert, to go back to Egypt and to bring his people out. Though God's glory appeared there but for a while, yet it is said to dwell there, because it continued as long as there was occasion for the goodwill of the Shekinah in the bush. It was a very impactful appearance of the Lord to Moses, and he was very clear from that time on what the Lord's will was for Israel to come out of Egypt and to establish worship and to be en route to the promised land. So that was what God did for Moses, and that he mentioned to remind the tribe of Joseph of the Lord's goodwill for his people. For the goodwill of him that dwelt in the bush, let the blessing come upon the head of Joseph and upon the top of the head of him that was separated from his brethren. Indeed, Moses also was separated from his brethren. When he thought he knew better, he killed the Egyptian taskmaster, and he did not look up to heaven, and but instead he looked left and he looked right, and then he killed the man, and he was found out, and he realized that Pharaoh would be coming after him, and so he had to run for his life, and there he found refuge in the home of Ruel, and there he stayed for 40 years, marrying one of the daughters of the Midianite priest, and he until the Lord instructed him via the bush to go back to Egypt to deliver his people. It was at the bush that God declared himself the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and so confirmed the promise made to the fathers, that promise which reached as far as the resurrection of the body and eternal life, as appears by our Saviour's argument from it. Luke 20 verse 37. Now that the dead are raised, even Moses showed at the bush, when he calleth the Lord, the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, so that when he prays for the goodwill of him that dwelt in the bush, he has an eye to the covenant, then and there renewed, on which all our hopes of God's favor must be bottomed. Now he concludes this large blessing with a prayer for the favor and goodwill of God. What a blessing it is when we have the Lord with us, because that is the fountain and springhead of all these blessings. It is from the Lord, the goodwill of the Lord, that we receive all His benefits, and therefore we must not forget what God had done for His people. people. And the trouble with Israel throughout their history was that they were always so forgetful, isn't it? For Israel, Hosea 4 verse 16 to 17 says, slideth back as a backsliding heifer. Now the Lord will feed them as a lamb in a large place. Ephraim is joined to idols. Let him alone. Right? When we are joined to idols, we are no longer in a place of obedience, and the holy God cannot be joined, isn't it, to idols. Paul so emphatically tell us that the temple of God cannot be joined together with evil. And so in 2 Corinthians 6 verse 14 we are told, be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers, for what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? What communion hath light with darkness? And what concord hath Christ with Belial? And what part hath he that believeth with the infidels? What agreement hath the temple of God with idols? For ye are the temple of the living God, as he has said, I will dwell in them and walk in them, I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you, and will be a father unto you, and ye shall be my sons and my daughters, saith the Lord Almighty. Having therefore these promises, dearly beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all unfilthiness of the flesh, all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God. The departure of God's people after a pronounced blessing upon them is something really very sad, isn't it? Because that is the comfort and sweetness of these blessings, then we have joy of them when we taste God's goodwill in them. Well, having tasted, let us continue to enjoy the goodwill of God, isn't it? Because that is better than all this, infinitely better. For if we have but the favor and goodwill of God, we are happy, and may be easy in the want of all these things, and may rejoice in the God of our salvation. Though the fig tree do not blossom, and there be no fruit in the vine, well, you have the Lord with us, isn't it? Whether you are in this state, whether you're in that state, you realize that when you have the Lord with you, you learn both to be full, Paul says, and both to hunger, isn't it? Verse 17. For his glory is like the firstling of his flock, and his horns are like the horns of the unicorns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth. Here we are told a great power Joseph is blessed with, and this is well described and foretold. His authority among his brethren, his glory is like the firstlings of his bullock or young bull, which is a stately creature and therefore used as an emblem of royal majesty. Joshua, who was to succeed Moses, was of the tribe of Ephraim, the son of Joseph, and his glory was indeed illustrious, and he was an honor to his tribe. In Ephraim was the royal city of the 10 tribes given afterwards. And the of Manasseh were Gideon, Jephthah, Jair. These are all the judges of Israel. And he was an honor to his tribe. These are all ornaments and blessings that the Lord would bestow upon them. 1 Chronicles 5 verse 1 to 2. Now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, For he was firstborn, but as much as he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given to the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel, and the genealogy is not to be reckoned after the birthright, for Judah prevailed above his brethren, and of him came the chief ruler, but the birthright was Joseph's. And so here, we are told how the people of Ephraim exceeds that of Manasseh. They are the thousands of Ephraim, the 10,000s of Ephraim, and the thousands of Manasseh. Amen.